Welcome back. Foreign policy, it's going to be a big focus of the Democratic convention this evening. We're going to hear from two former presidents, Bill Clinton and Jimmy Carter, and also former Secretary of State and war hero John Kerry. Now, ahead of his speech tonight, Kerry, he's talking about where he'll focus.
Our role in the world, the expectations of the world for the United States, the need for countries to come together, the massive challenges we face in terms of nuclear weapons, cyber warfare, and of course, the monster of them all, climate crisis, which will require nations to come together in ways that Donald Trump simply doesn't believe in, number one, and number two, is not capable of carrying out, even if he did.
Well, my next guest says his old boss, John Kerry, is spot on. Joel Rubin, he was Deputy Assistant Secretary of State in the Obama administration. Joel, obviously, foreign policy, it will be discussed. John Kerry, who you know well, will be doing some of the positioning tonight at the convention. But give a macro. Do a look back where we were 4 years ago as a country and our standing in the world, and look at it now. And you have I think a great context for this, because you must have looked at all the work you guys did, not only being undone, but our reputation. I don't remember it even being in the area of code of where it is now.
Richard, it is as low as it has ever been in my lifetime. And it's a depressing fact that the United States right now is isolated globally. We have no respect in the international community. And this isn't just theory. We can see in votes. Just last week at the United Nations, at the Security Council, we put a resolution forward to put an arms embargo, to extend it on Iran. And we only got one other vote. 13 countries didn't vote in favor. That's never happened before in the United States. So it is very troubling that when President Obama left and the United States global standing was high, except perhaps maybe with Russia, who was trying to interfere in our election to put in his nemesis, Donald Trump, we have never been at this low point, and it really harms our security, and we can see the results.
There's a lot of folks, I'm sure, watching us at home who say, all right, he may, play footsie with enemies and turn away allies, but at the end of the day, how does it really change my life? Put in practical terms for people why what we've done to our European allies, why people don't trust us to share intelligence with us anymore, how the world is a more dangerous place right now against American self-interest, all because of the actions in the last 4 years.
When America stands alone, we are unable to build coalitions to protect our country and to advance our interests. When we stand alone, we can't engage effectively, for example, on the worst crises facing our country. The pandemic is the perfect example. The United States, we alone cannot stop a pandemic from coming to our shores. We have to work with Europe. We have to work with China, with the Asian countries. And what Donald Trump has sought to do is to not make America first. He sought to make America isolated, and that we are. And the result is that we are suffering economically, we are suffering in our health, and our standing is so low that when the next crisis occurs, nobody's going to come to us and say, how can you help? They're just going to ignore us altogether if Donald Trump stays in the White House.
I saw the situation as it's unfolding in Belarus, and I cringed because I said, usually this is the kind of a moment where America will stand with those people that are saying no more, and they want democracy, and they're not going to take it from an autocrat. But I just imagine in the Oval, the president saying, hey, let Putin do what he's going to do. If if he's going to go ask the Kremlin for help, I'm sure this is an area where Putin would love to inject himself right now. And I don't even see the president, our president today, so much as criticizing, let alone lending a hand.
No, it's shameful, Richard. It's shameful. There are hundreds of thousands of young Belarusians in the streets in Minsk and elsewhere calling for freedom, calling for democracy, and getting beaten by their government. And the president of the United States is nowhere to be seen. We've seen Hong Kong completely taken over by China. We've seen the Uyghurs, an ethnic group in China, by the million put in concentration camps. And the president shrugs his shoulders, says, it is what it is. That doesn't have to be that way. And when we don't stand up for democracy and human rights abroad, we invariably don't stand up for it here at home. And we're witnessing it. And that's what's very concerning, is that we now have a president who is mirroring and mimicking strongman tactics from overseas, be it shutting down peaceful protests outside the White House, be it preventing people from voting in our democratic elections, pulling out mailboxes from the ground so there are less places to vote. These are strongman tactics. And the next thing to go, if we're not careful, if he stays in power, is the Constitution itself and the checks and balances, which he has already demonstrated no regard for.
I'm going to give you two scenarios. One I know you're going to like more than the other, but let's start with a half empty. Trump wins in November. Forget about how he wins. Give me where you're really worried. Forget about even domestically, globally. Things can go from bad to worse if Trump gets 4 more years.
If Trump gets 4 more years on a global scale, we are going to witness a further entrenchment of an alliance between the United States and Vladimir Putin. And we're going to see us turning our back on authoritarianism while Vladimir Putin pushes it further into Russia's neighbors and into Europe. And that's a very dark period.
Now, let me give you door number 2, which you'll like better. Joe Biden wins in November. Give me an idea what you believe his foreign policy vision would be and what he ought to do, forget the first 100 days, in 4 years to maybe reshape American policy and the globe the way at least it used to be. And where are there opportunities to make some real inroads?
Well, I like the way the Biden team and Vice President Biden has framed their campaign. The campaign is about build back better. It's not going back to 2016 and saying we'll just ignore the last few years. You can't. We're now in 2020. But it's to do it better. There have been a lot of lessons learned. And one of the key lessons learned from a foreign policy perspective is that the United States, we need to engage aggressively at all levels of societies, at the diplomatic level, but also on the people-to-people level with civil society. We need to strengthen our bonds overseas, but it's gonna require a lot of work. It's not going to happen in the first 100 days. We have a huge ditch to dig out from, but we will not get out of that ditch if we just look inward. We're going to have to look external as part of that. And I think that's what he brings to the table that is unique for this moment in time, and that is a very clear contrast from Donald Trump.
Joel, I know you're going to be watching tonight. It'll be interesting what we hear from both John Kerry and others in terms of where 4 years under a different president might look globally. But I appreciate your time tonight. Thank you so much.
Appreciate it. Thanks, Richard.
All right, everybody, when we come back, obviously we just spoke about foreign policy, but we didn't even mention how Russia meddled in our election to help Trump. Now, the latest confirmation of that coming from Republicans in the U.S. Senate. Republicans. We're going to share the details on that after this.